What's up guys, and welcome to my 6.3 updated Neuvillette guide. In this video I'm taking over everything you do need to know in order to understand Neuvillette and properly build him as of the 6.3 update, including an overview on his kit and constellations, best weapons to use, best relic sets to run and the stats you want to run on them for both main stat and substats, and then finally the plenty of team building options that he does have. Starting it off with Neuvillette's kit, his normal attack will deal hydro damage, it being a 3-hit string normal attack string. His charge attack will allow you to charge up and gather the power of water, forming it into a seal of arbitration. In this state, Neuvillette can move and change facing, and also absorb any source water droplets in a certain AoE. Each droplet he absorbs will increase the formation speed of the seal and will also heal Neuvillette. When the charging is stopped, if the symbol has yet to be formed, then a charge attack will be unleashed. If it has been formed, then his actual Hydro Beam charge attack will be unleashed. The Hydro Beam will unleash Surging Torrents, dealing continuous AoE hydro damage to all opponents in a straight line area in front of him. It doesn't consume any stamina and lasts for 3 seconds. If Neuvillette's HP is above 50%, he will continuously lose HP while using the attack. His skill summons a Raging Waterfall that will deal AoE hydro damage to opponents in front of Neuvillette based off his max HP. Hitting an opponent will generate 3 source water droplets near that opponent. Arcane Pneuma, at certain intervals when the Raging Waterfall descends, a Spirit Breath Thorn will descend that will pierce opponents, dealing Pneuma aligned hydro damage. His ultimate will unleash a wave that will deal AoE hydro damage based off Neuvillette's max HP. After a short interval, 2 waterfalls will descend and deal hydro damage in a somewhat similar AoE that will also generate 6 source water droplets within the area in front. For his passives, his A2, when a party member triggers a reaction related to hydro on an opponent, 1 stack of past draconic glories will be granted to Neuvillette for 30 seconds that stacks up to 3 times. Each stack will cause his Hydro Beam charge attack to deal 110% slash 125% slash 160% of the original damage, and the stacks created by each kind of reaction can exist independently. His next Ascension talent, for every 1% of Neuvillette's current HP greater than 30% of his max HP, he will gain 0.6% hydro damage bonus, and a maximum of 30% hydro damage bonus can be obtained this way. His Overworld passive increases underwater sprint speed for your own party members by 15%. That is not stackable with passive talents that provide the same effect. And for his constellations, his C1, when Neuvillette takes the field, he will obtain a stack of past draconic glories from the Ascension talent, and you must unlock the Ascension talent first to actually get that effect. Additionally, his interruption resistance will be increased when he is using any form of his charge attack. His C2, the Ascension talent, heir to the Ancient Sea's authority, will be enhanced. Now, each stack of past draconic glories will also increase crit damage of his Hydro Beam charge attack by 14%, up to a maximum of 42% can be obtained this way, and you also must unlock the Ascension talent to get the effect. His C4, when Neuvillette is on the field and is healed, 1 source water droplet will be generated and can occur every 4 seconds. And his C6, when using his Hydro Beam charge attack, Neuvillette can absorb nearby source water droplets in an AoE. Each absorbed droplet will increase the duration of his charge attack by 1 second. Additionally, when his Hydro Beam hits opponents, it will fire off 2 additional currents every 2 seconds, each of which will deal 10% of Neuvillette's max HP as hydro damage. Damage dealt this way will count as damage dealt by the Hydro Beam charge attack. For Neuvillette's best weapon options, of course, his far and none best one is going to be his own signature, the Tome of Eternal Flow, which provides 88.2% crit damage at max level, and the effect will increase HP by 16%. When current HP increases or decreases, charge attack damage will be increased by 14% for 4 seconds, that stacks up to 3 times. The effect can be triggered once every 0.3 seconds. When this character has 3 stacks, or a 3rd stack's duration refreshes, 8 energy will be restored, and the energy restoration effect can be triggered once every 12 seconds. Everything this weapon is providing is absolutely perfect for Neuvillette. It provides you a massive increase of crit damage, which is going to be great for building him, and right away for free you get an increase to his HP of 16%, and as he does scale off HP, that's going to be very good. To top it all off, he is able to gain up to a 42% increase to charge attack damage, which is practically all his source of damage. He does do some damage off skill and also his ultimate, but his charge attack and the Hydro Beam is primarily all his source of damage, and he is able to drain his own HP and often is paired alongside someone that can drain his HP, being Farina. Of course, that would change depending on the team you're running, but even by himself he is able to stack this. And at the very least, you can also get an energy restored effect of 8 energy, which is going to be great in stuff like Stygian Onslaught, where you need help for as much energy as you can get, but even in general it's going to help you, especially with having lower energy requirements, which makes his signature option his far and none best in slot. You can also very much use Sacrificial Jade from the Battle Pass. This weapon is also insanely powerful on him. The effect for it is 36.8% crit rate, and the effect itself, when not on the field for more than 5 seconds, seconds, max HP will be increased and EM will be increased, and it'll be cancelled after the wearer is on the field for 10 seconds. Crit rate increase is also very good with building him. It might make it a lot easier to overcap as well, since his best artifact set also does provide a lot of crit rate, so definitely keep that in mind when building him with this weapon, but it allows you to allocate a bunch of more stats in the HP% and also crit damage. Speaking of which, this also provides you a massive increase to max HP. The EM part is also nice. It's not really crazy or anything, it's mainly for the HP. The only downside is you are not allowed to be on field for more than 10 seconds, so you have to be very quick with your Neuvillette. Neuvillette mainly has 3 or 4 beams, and then also accounting for the animation of his ult and such, so usually you can get off most of your rotation, if not the entire thing, within the 10 seconds, so you can very safely have the full effect of this actual weapon up throughout your entire rotation. And with higher refinements of this actual weapon, it becomes a very competitive option to his signature. So if you have this weapon at R5, this weapon is almost as good, making it his second best overall option to use. You can also very much use Mulan's signature weapon, which also provides 88.2% crit damage similar to his signature, and for the effect it will increase his max HP by 20% once every 15 seconds. For 14 seconds after using an elemental skill, gain 4 Scorching Summer stacks. Each stack increases normal attack damage by 12%. For the duration of this effect, once every 1.5 seconds, lose 1 stack after a normal attack hits an opponent once every 1.5 seconds. Gain a stack after triggering a Vaporize reaction on an opponent, max 4 stacks. It's mainly just for the crit damage increase and also the maximum HP increase. That's really the only reason it's kind of set apart as opposed to other stat sticks and other weapons. Unfortunately, Neuvillette isn't really doing normal attack damage. His damage is chart attack damage, which is counted differently. And for majority of the teams, especially nowadays, you're not really running him as a vape reaction. So in a chance where this weapon's effect would properly work, you would frequently need a vape reaction to keep up full uptime, at least throughout a long time of durations. But just because it doesn't work, you would ignore that second part entirely. It's really just for the fact that it has a massive crit rate stick and also a maximum HP stick, which makes it a usable option just for that. Ash Craven Drinking Horn is also one of his best 4-star options, with the increase of the secondary stat being 41.3% HP, and the effect when an attack hits an opponent, deal AoE damage based off the wearer's max HP at the target's location and can be triggered every 15 seconds. Very simple weapon, it just provides you a lot of HP from the secondary stat and also will just deal extra damage every 15 seconds. So it's just some extra hits you can get there, it doesn't really provide anything else. It is also just overall good to use on him. Similar in results, you can also use the prototype Amber weapon as well, also providing 41.3% HP as the secondary stat, and then the effect using an elemental burst regenerates energy every 2 seconds, and all party members will regenerate some HP every 2 seconds for the duration. For the same reason, on the secondary stat, provides a lot of HP, so that's going to be good for building him, and also helps alleviate some energy requirements when you are building him. Neuvillette in general doesn't really have the biggest energy requirements, but this makes it even less, and then also provides a bit of emergency heal if you were to need it. And if you really have none of those options, you can very much just use a stat stick such as Nefer's signature weapon, or whatever 5-star stat stick you do have in that case. For Neuvillette's artifact stats, of course, the best in slot is going to be none other than Martese Hunter. This set is just unmatched when it comes for him. 2-piece will increase normal charge attack damage by 15%, and the 4-piece, when current HP increases or decreases, crit rate increases by 12% for 5 seconds, maximum of 3 stacks. The 2-piece does impact his main source of damage being charge attack damage, so that gets an extra 15% increase, and the 4-piece can give you up to a 36% increase to crit rate, and Neuvillette does drain his own HP and is able to get max stacks by himself, so it makes him super easier to build when you can really just focus on a bunch more crit damage and a bunch more HP%. Of course, depending on the weapon you're using, you don't want to fully neglect crit rate. As with someone like Neuvillette, you want to build closer to 100%. But this set is just so good. It provides you so much crit rate that is very easily accessed by him, since he can again drain his own HP. And as I did mention, frequently his teams do pair him with Farina, so you can really just keep 100% uptime with that. Or just another healer on the team that helps you increase your HP as well. That's also enough. So for best overall performance, this is really the only set you're going to want to use. Other than that, you can use the Heart of Depth set as well. The set does work fine. 2-piece provides some Hydro damage bonus of 15%, and 4-piece, after using elemental skill, increases normal attack and charge attack damage by 30% for 15 seconds. Very simple. 2-piece just provides you 15% Hydro damage, which is what he is, so he's just going to get an overall damage increase, and 4-piece will be able to increase his charge attack damage, being his main source, by 30% for 15 seconds after using an elemental skill. So you will mainly always have uptime on that, since his cooldown on a skill is less than 15 seconds. Doesn't perform overall as good as Martise Hunter just because of the insane amount of stats that set does provide, but if you are farming for a set, you can very much use Heart of Depth if you do have it. It does work fine enough on it. The game recommends running 4-piece Wanderer Troop if you want to, but I don't really recommend it. If you're going to do a 4-piece, you would mainly run these two. Martise Hunter is the one that is set above all rest, while Heart of Depth is usable, but similar to Heart of Depth, you can really just run 2-piece, 2-piece. The difference there isn't going to be that big. So running 2-piece Heart of Depth with 2-piece Martise Hunter works, or 2-piece of either of the ones mentioned, and combining that with 2-piece of one of the sets that does increase your HP by 20%, so such as this one. Another one that does that is Tenacity itself, also has the same 2-piece. So for 2-piece, 2-piece, it would be an HP percent increasing one combined with a Hydro increasing one, or Martise Hunter for the charge attack increase. But again, for Neuvillette, really just get a 4-piece Martise Hunter. Even if it's not the greatest in stats, it will usually always outperform every other option just because of how much stats it does give you. For the main stats on the artifacts, for the sands, you want to run HP percent always. For the goblet, you can do hydro damage or HP percent. If you were to compare two equal overall stat wise when it comes to HP percent and goblet, HP percent usually does outperform, especially if you're using Farina. But if you have a really good hydro goblet, then you have no real reason to change. The difference isn't that big. And then for the circlet, you can do crit rate, crit damage, or even HP percent depending on your build. If you happen to have so many good crit stats, also based off your weapon and such, especially combining Martise Hunter's whole effect. Oftentimes, a lot of people will run crit damage and end up having a guaranteed crit build even though they don't have a crit rate weapon or such as signature plus just the rolls and then Martise Hunter. It's very easy to get a bunch of crit damage that way, and especially if you're running a crit rate weapon already, in that case, you would run crit damage. But if you happen to have a really good Martise Hunter set where you happen to have maybe upwards from 280% crit damage, also guaranteed crit by just having the set, and that's no circlet included. In that case, you can run an HP percent circlet just so you don't have an insane amount of diminishing returns, although the most common one is going to be crit damage. HP percent is really only for the people that have absolutely god tier relics and crit rolls, so keep that in mind. For the most part, you will be running crit rate or crit damage corresponding to which one you do need more. And then for the substats themselves, first you want to just make sure you have enough ER. Of course, there's so many different variables when it comes to ER. Neuvillette's overall general requirement is 120 to 125, or even 130% when needed. If you have a signature or you're running prototype Amber, you can really dump that down to like 115%. Same thing with just running him alongside someone like Farina or just another hydro character to very much alleviate the energy requirement. And if you're running someone else that generates a lot of energy, such as Fischl, or you have a double electro character team with Fischl and such, in that case you don't really need much ER, but a healthy amount for any build and just really most teams is just 120 to 125%. That is a sweet spot. 130% is for people that aren't really running signature or proto amber and then also jump around teams too much. And then of course you can go even less if you're running Fav and such. And if you're in Stygian Onslaught, then even with Fav and all this extra stuff, you still want to keep over 120% just because you start with none and you want to get all as soon as possible. Then past the energy requirement, then you would focus on crit rate, crit damage, and HP percent. A healthy HP percent for Neuvillettes nowadays is minimum 35k. Should be more if you're running a weapon that has a secondary stat being HP percent, such as prototype Amber, but 35k minimum overall for any build is good. If you're able to get 40k or higher, that is absolutely ideal. For crit rate, if you are running Martise Hunter, which you should be, aim to get as close as 64% as possible, because 64% when fully stacked Martise will be 100%. So if you're running 4-piece Martise, be sure you don't go above 64%, otherwise it will be wasted stats. But getting it from anywhere between 55% to 60% is also good. Just getting it closer to 64% for guaranteed crit is obviously ideal. And then for crit damage, this also does depend on your entire weapon situation and such and what circlet you're running, but a healthy crit ratio for Neuvillette is going to be, of course, having 60% crit rate, which would translate to near 100% in battle, and then having around 270% or higher crit damage depending on the weapon and such. If it's a crit weapon, yeah, 270% or higher is going to be your normal goal, and then the closer you're able to get to 300%, that's going to be better. If you're running an HP percent circlet though, in that case, even having something like 260% or 250% is very good. Finally, for team building. So Neuvillette has so many teams that I'm not even going to cover all of them in this video just because there's so many. But to give you some of the most common ones, his hypercarry team that is still his best is going to be Neuvillette himself, Farina, as that is just one of his best partners in general, Kazuha, and then Shallonen. This is Neuvillette's best hypercarry team. You can sub accordingly. Let's say you have a C0 Neuvillette and you really want a shield just so you don't get knocked back. You can replace Shallonen with someone like Zhongli, or if you have Shallonen and you don't have Kazuha, or Kazuha is being used somewhere else, or you just don't want to use Kazuha. You can also run someone like Lanyan, who also provides a shield that can also hold VV. On his hypercarry teams, you very much want someone to hold VV, so the team could definitely look like this. Another very powerful team with Neuvillette is the Freeze team, which consists of Neuvillette, Farina, so this is still the foundation. The third slot goes to Escoffier, as every Freeze team wants her. She is just so broken for them. Last slot goes to Sitlali, but I don't have Sitlali on my account, don't ask why. So for anyone that does have her, that would be the one you would use. That team is mainly set, and that's kind of the 4 units you do want to use. Of course, the last slot being Sitlali is the most replaceable, but since Sitlali just does great stuff for that team and also provides a shield, she is very valuable. But these 3 are mainly the ones you don't want to replace. Of course, Neuvillette being the character in the guide, so he wouldn't be the question of replacing. Farina just does so much for everyone's damage. Escoffier is just fantastic for freeze teams, never really a negotiable character there. And last slot, more flexible. This exact team, but running Skirk in the last slot, is also probably my personal favorite Neuvillette team. That's also just because I'm biased and I love Skirk. But this team does work really good. You just throw out these 2 character rotations as normal. You hold E and you ult as Skirk, and you immediately go into Neuvillette, functioning as a quick swap Skirk, as she does that very well. And since this whole team is Cryo and Hydro, you get the full effect of her kit, you get the full effect of Escoffier's kit, so everything does work out. This team is also very strong. Now for more recent lunar related reaction kits for Neuvillette, of course pairing Neuvillette alongside Anefa is usually the most common one, because not only does she enable the lunar charge, but also provides a shield that's great if you don't have C1 Neuvillette. And now the third slot would go to Columbina, as she did just release and is someone that you want to put with every lunar reaction team if you can, and also will help you hit the Ascendant Gleam for them as well. And then the third slot would go to Sucrose, so the team would practically just be Flynn's best team, but you have Neuvillette instead of Flynn's, so the team would look like this. And then of course you can sub out for whatever you do need. You can use Ino instead of Columbina. If you don't have an Nefa, you can use someone like Fischl instead, and you can also use Shalodan instead of Sucrose. You just don't want to really use someone like Kazuha, just because he provides damage bonus, which is useless for lunar reactions. As when it comes to these other teams that is not his hypercarry team, you mainly function for the fact that Neuvillette's damage is lower and the lunar charge damage is high. You can also run this exact team, but instead of Sucrose, you would do Lalma instead. This team also functions very good as a Bloom team, with Neuvillette and Columbina being Hydro applicators, Neuvillette being the on-field driver, and Effa being able to, of course, proc all the actual blooms, and then Lalma being the one to help you with the Dendro app. If you wanted a more general-sided lunar bloom related team, then of course you would just mainly take these 2 out, or you can keep whatever one you do have, like using Anefa as the detonator or using Columbina as an applicator. But let's just not use them an example and just use Lalma for bloom specifically. You could use Farina, which is going to be Hydro app plus also giving Neuvillette personal damage. Doesn't affect the actual damage of the lunar reaction, unfortunately, but still does work out. But you still would want an Electro to proc it. In this case, you could use Yai or especially someone like Fischl, so the team could look like this. Unfortunately, with this team, you wouldn't have the full Ascendant Glow, so keep that in mind. So instead of Farina, you could use someone like Ino if you don't have Columbina. And that is the full 6.3 updated guide for Neuvillette. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all other types of Genshin Impact content. And I'll see you later. Peace out.